Welcome to Digital Literacy, a guide to using technology and journalism. This week we're going to start our discussions on photography and photojournalism. Photos are a very powerful tool. Not everybody can squeeze into the Introduction to Photojournalism course that we have here in the journalism department, so we want to give you a couple of quick tips and some really basic things that will help you become a better photojournalist. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to talk about the mechanics of the camera that you're going to be shooting with. So we've got a demonstration video that we're going to insert here in a few moments, and once we come back from that, we're going to talk about what to shoot. There's a whole lot of different things that you need to be thinking about to be able to build some visual variety into your photo packages. Also, this is going to set you up for the audio slideshow that we're going to be doing in 2 weeks. So let's get over and take a look at the camera that you're going to be working with first.
Okay, this is the Kodak camera that you'll be working with this semester. This is a Kodak ZI-8. This was introduced in 2009, and we decided to go with this for a couple of reasons. Form factor, size-wise, it's about the same as the Flip Ultra or the Flip Mino. Probably a little bigger than a Mino, about the same size as an Ultra. It does have a couple of advantages over that, which I'll be going over here in a moment. But let's just run through the buttons on it real quick. There aren't a whole lot. On the right-hand side here, you've got a power button. Just push and hold that down for a second. You get a little red light, and that'll power it up. When it first comes up, it's going to give you the option of changing the way you shoot, which camera mode you're in. You can also bring that up by hitting this camera button here on the side. So if you bring that up, you'll see you get a couple of different videos, and then over to the right there's the still camera mode. And to switch between these, just use the joystick to move left and right. So since today we're going to be shooting stills, we'll leave it in that mode. You'll see that right now we've got a little flower icon on here. One of the neat things about the Kodak camera is up here on the top you've got a little black switch. It's kind of hard to see here, but what this allows you to do is to move between a normal mode and a macro mode. That macro mode will let you do a close-up, and then if you flip it over to the other side, that's a standard side. So for shooting both stills and video on this, in the normal mode you want to be 4.5, 5 feet away from your subject, and from that point all the way out to infinity it's going to be pretty sharp. The macro mode is going to get you much closer. I'll give you a little quick example of this here. So I've got this little tripod that you'll also be getting, and we'll hold it there, and what I'm going to do is move down until that looks pretty sharp on the screen. It's right about there, so you can see that we're getting pretty close in order to be able to get a picture. Now to take a picture, you're just going to hit the red button in the center here, and it'll flash it up on screen for a moment, and you've got a picture stored on the card. Now let's go over some of the other things that are on here real quick. We'll come back to the camera when we start doing video in a couple of weeks. On the right hand side here, below the power button, you've got a little port. You can pop this open, and inside there you can see we can drop a secure digital card. We'll be giving you an SD card to shoot on, so that you can take your card out and not worry about somebody else writing over it. On the bottom here we've got a little flap that pops out, and you've got a USB jack here, so you can plug that into almost any computer and drag your files over. It'll show up as a drive. The other thing that you can do is use a card reader, and that'll be a little quicker there. On the bottom we do have a tripod thread here, and what this will allow you to do is to attach it to a tripod. We'll be talking about that when we get to video, but I'll let you know right now that that is all plastic in there, so you want to be very, very careful when you're connecting this. Okay, on the left hand side you got 3 different things here. The lower one, this is to plug in power so that you can charge it up. This is an HDMI, a high definition cable jack that's right there, and the real reason that we bought this, it has the ability to plug in a microphone. On the back side of it we've got essentially 3 buttons here. All the way to the left, this is for your menu settings, all different kinds of things you can go through in here. Nothing that we need to worry about for still photos, so we're not going to worry about that. You've got a delete button here, so when you're in the play mode you can go ahead and you can delete a button, delete an image. I recommend against this. You got pretty good sized cards, you're probably not going to need to do this. Then the camera mode selector there, again all the different settings. The ones that we're going to use the most are the photo all the way to the right in 720p, and then a playback button, and this will give you the ability to go through and take a look at the different things that you've got on here. Alright, so that's the basics of the camera. Now let's talk about what it is that you should be out there shooting.
One other piece of technical information that we didn't discuss in the camera is the format that the camera is going to shoot into. It's going to shoot into what's called a JPEG format, a .jpg extension. Now, most of you probably have digital cameras, and most cameras come default set up for JPEGs. JPEGs are really handy, pretty good file quality out of them, pretty good image quality out of them, very, very small file sizes out of them. But it is a compressed format. And what that means is it's taking a large image and it's shrinking it down using a mathematical algorithm that we're not going to go into any detail here. But just so you know, JPEGs are the standard image format on the web. So we're just going to start shooting in JPEGs, and we'll need JPEGs when we get to our audio slideshow in a couple of weeks. So before we get to that, we need to talk about the types of images that you should be shooting. Whenever you go out on an assignment and you have to shoot photos, there are 4 things that you're going to want to shoot on all of these assignments. And the first one is a portrait. You want to get a good visual representation of your subject. So you want to find a way of filling up the frame with their face so that if somebody was walking down the street, they'd be able to recognize them. So we've got a couple of examples of different portraits here and a couple of different styles. But the things to be looking for are a good expression and a really clean background. You want people to be able to see them very, very clearly. Now, with the Kodak camera, one of the downsides to it is in the regular focus mode, not the macro mode, in the regular focus mode, it's sharpest from about 4.5 or 5 feet out to infinity. So you may want to stand 4.5, 5 feet away from somebody, and you may have to crop into the image a little bit. But take a look on the screen. If it looks fuzzy, back up a little bit. So you want to make sure that you get a good, sharp representation of them. You want to get something that's got a little bit of emotion to them, like this image where we've moved in really, really close. Now, we don't see this guy's face real clearly, but we do get a little mood, a little emotion. This one, we've got a nice expression here. We've got some decent light wrapping around him. All right, the next thing that you're going to want to do is get yourself a long shot, and a long shot is a scene setter. What it does is it establishes the place that you're in. Sometimes it can also establish the mood. It can establish a time frame, but it gives you an idea of a sense of scale. So from this wedding here, we got down low and shot a nice low angle that gives us a feel for the synagogue that this was in. This is from a conference back over the summer, and it's a couple of UGA students who are volunteering to do some live blogging, but you get a sense of the space that they're in. A whole lot of empty chairs, unfortunately, at this one. This is a friend of mine walking down the street, and you get a sense of the place that's here. All right. Now, sometimes long shots are going to give you that strong sense of geography, that strong sense of place. Sometimes it just helps to give you a sense of scale. So this could have been a model car if you took the person out of it, but by putting the person in there, it gives you sort of a size frame of reference here. Next thing you want to do is a medium shot. And the medium shot is sort of the bread and butter. Medium shots are what most of us are going to shoot most of the time. And if you wanted to sort of frame it physically, you'd say that a medium shot is from the waist to the top of the head generally, but the bigger part of medium shots is this is where we're going to have most of our moments. And moments are really, really important in photography. So we've got a couple examples here from a workshop that we did a few months ago. And here we have a whole bunch of people, but it's centered in on these 2 folks who are closest to the front here. And there's a moment there. They're talking about images. There's a level of engagement that's there. You also have a second layer of information in there with another editor and another student in the background. And if you look around, there's even some more kind of scattered around through there. And here you have 4 editors all taking a look at one student's work. Now you've got some relationships going on in here. The front 3 people are all looking at the screen. The back 2 people, there's that second layer of information again where they're interacting. So looking for those moments. All right, again, medium shots, generally from the waist to the top of the head, sometimes 2 people, sometimes 3 people. Once you get beyond 3 or 4 people, it gets really difficult to call it a medium shot because it ends up getting kind of loose. Another thing to be thinking about is you always want to be looking for horizontals and verticals, particularly if you're shooting for a print publication or web publication. You want to give your designers the option to be able to have lots of different sorts of shapes that are in there. Something else to think about, particularly with framing shots, and even with long shots, is you want to look for some sort of framing devices. You want to look for things that are going to offset your subject from the backgrounds or the foregrounds. So here we've just used the simple window frame to be able to do some framing. Again, moments. Moments are so key. Those interactions between people really, really make your pictures sing at a very, very high level. You want to look for those really, really small moments, like this image from an ice cream shop up in South Carolina. This woman working behind the counter had a ton of attitude, and if she did not like the way you placed your order, you didn't get your order. It was a very entertaining situation here. But by focusing in on just her eye, we were able to really draw you into this image here. And of course, there's her boss. This isn't really a medium shot. This is more of a medium long. The crossover between longs, mediums, and close-ups, which we're going to get to in a moment here, it's not a hard line. It's kind of fuzzy. So this is a medium, long kind of a shot here. But again, it's about attitude. It's about putting him in his place. All right, so close-ups. Close-ups are the 4th one that we're going to talk about. Close-ups are where our visual eye and our journalistic eye really comes into play, because we're going to go looking for things that the average person might not see. So you want to move in really, really close. Close-ups tend to be an awful lot about shape, about texture, about light, about color. It's about filling in the blanks. It's about showing people things that they might not normally see. Right? That macro mode that's built into your camera, that little switch that's on the top there, that's a wonderful thing to be able to use, because it allows you to get in really, really close and really show some details there, like these ice crystals that were sitting on top of the roof of my car one morning when I came out to come into work. This would be great if you were doing a story about changes in the weather, cold snaps, something like that. It's graphic, it's visually appealing. All right, so the vocab for this week. First one that you're going to want to learn is JPEG, JPGs. Again, those are the compressed image files that most cameras are going to produce automatically, and they're the standard image format on the web. Up next would be the macro mode. Macro mode is that close-up mode. It's the switch on top of the Kodak camera that allows you to get in really, really close and fill the frame. The types of images that we talked about, portraits are the first ones. Portraits, again, you're looking for a good, clean, clear representation of what your subject looks like. Up next is going to be your long shots. Long shots are establishing shots. They're scene setters. They give you a sense of place, a sense of scale. Then we're going to move in a little bit tighter for medium shots. Medium shots are where primarily we're going to be looking for great moments, great interaction between people. And then we go to close-ups, those detail shots where we really get to sing as visual storytellers. All right, your assignment for this week when you come into class, you're going to grab your partner, the person that you interviewed a few weeks ago for your audio, and you're going to shoot a portrait of them. You're going to be released out into the wild with the cameras. You're going to take your memory cards, put it in there, make sure that you've got your memory card in there, because at the end of class you need to take your card home with you, because we're not going to be downloading. First thing you're going to do, go out and shoot a portrait of them. Shoot a couple of them, horizontals, verticals. Watch your backgrounds. You want a really good, clean representation of them. Then I want you to shoot 3 long shots. It may be the outside of the building from a couple of different angles. It may be here in the lab, various places like that, so that you get a sense of location, a sense of place. Then you want to shoot 3 medium shots. So look for your subject interacting with other students, walking down the hall, sitting at the lab table, things along those lines. And then look for 3 close-ups as well. Maybe they have a ring, some jewelry. If they have a tattoo, I guess you could ask if you could photograph that. Maybe they have a badge or a pin or something on their bag, something like along those lines. Something that gives us a little bit of character, fills in a few blanks about who they are. When you're done shooting, you're going to come back into the lab. You want to remove and store your card. We're not going to be downloading this week. Next week, we're going to be talking about downloading your images and working with them in Photoshop. All right, that wraps up this week. Hope that was helpful for you. Next week, when you come in, you're going to need your card with the images you shot on it today, so make sure you don't forget that, because next week we're going to talk about 2 software programs real quickly. One of them is called Photo Mechanic, which is a great image browsing software program, and then we're going to talk about Photoshop. Now, if you've worked in Photoshop before, if you've ever seen Photoshop before, don't panic. We're only going to talk about a couple of quick, simple things to do in Photoshop. Photoshop is an overwhelming program when you get into it. We're not going to let you get overwhelmed. That wraps it up for this week. If you've got any questions, as always, ask your professor. They're the experts on this. This series was produced for the Journalism Department of the Grady College of Journalism and Mass Communication at the University of Georgia by a grant from the James M. Cox Institute for Newspaper Management Studies.